This is a play, kind of, but also not a play. Let's not worry about what this kind of thing's called, what we might have started to call it. This thing we've always done when we get together, whatever we've started to call together. And some of us watch and listen, and some of us speak and listen. Whatever we're calling this right now, this is one of those that's meant to take place wherever it takes place. It's meant to take place here. Which could mean you're wherever you are, and everyone else is wherever they are, joining together our here's to make a single here. Maybe, just maybe, we're all in the same air, that I can look you in your actual eye, your actual human, glistening, sticky to the touch, see it blink human eye. Imagine that. That's not what we're doing. If we're still at the heads and boxes stage, imagine us all in that space, how it's going to feel when it finally comes. Because it will happen.
And if it does happen, if we're all together in a room again, with air and eyes and all the different sounds, the small sounds of bodies that microphones don't notice and speakers don't transmit. Take a moment to think back to this time, to that lost age of months or weeks or even just days ago, when we couldn't do this, when our bodies were quiet, or at least made some noises only we could hear, when maybe the only clue to our actual existence in society was our real world existence, was when we froze or glitched on the internet during class, or when we had to leave and return while we stayed in the exact same place. Weird, isn't it? How, whatever you're doing now, how, whatever way we're doing this now, can so quickly become the only way to do it.
I guarantee you, even though some things might be different, the distance between us, if we're in a room, the tension in the room that was never there before, or the lag of different broadband speeds, the colour and closeness of the walls around us, we'll still find it hard to imagine that we used to do this any other way, or that the way we're doing it will change. But anyway, here we are. Probably when this is happening, when we're seeing this, when you're hearing this, we're still all a bit spooked, still a bit scared of touching each other. Everyone just feeling a bit like we're walking down a corridor that's lined with cheap carpets and we're about to touch a door handle. Most of us have learned to move their own lives like ghosts as the world changed around us in ways it never has before. Ways that we had to find words to describe. It was like the door slamming shut behind you and realising you're not locked out, you're locked in. No, that's not it. It was like a montage in a film, except instead of moving the story on, it repeated the same few frames over and over and over. That's not either. It was like waiting for a bus, except the timetable was blank and all the numbers on the board kept changing. That's not either. I think we should just try this one ourselves. It was like searching for something, but you don't know what. It was like feeling something was missing, but not knowing what that was. That's what it was like. And maybe it still is. So,
Anyone else been having really weird dreams? No? No? Don't worry, we're not going to tell you our dreams. Except, I had this dream.
So, I had this dream where I was walking outside, but it wasn't my outside, as in, not what I'd see if I went out the door. It was an outside that differed in very certain important respects from anywhere I'd normally find myself. It was huge, for one thing. Not streets or houses. The sky not just a ribbon stretched out over a road, glimpsed between the artificial horizons made by buildings closing in on either side. It was bigger even than landscapes without buildings, wider than moorland, more distant than the glimpse you get sometimes of distant hills.
It was definitely my body. It was absolutely, definitely me. Wearing my clothes, my height, my hair, and my skin. And I was standing there on that empty ground, in a colourless dream version of my everyday shoes. I remember standing there for a really long time. And I thought, do you ever think in dreams? It's really difficult. But I thought the world's gone. And then I thought about if that was true. And at that moment it felt true. And then really, what's been lost? I didn't really feel grief. I didn't really feel happiness. There's many things I'd miss. But then again, there's many things I was happy to lose. I guess it just kind of balanced out.
I was sad to lose being part of a city, you know, being on my own, feeling not knowing, feeling unknown, but I was glad to lose the eyes of strangers on me. I was glad to lose having to think about, you know, how I was going to dress, the worry of what people might be thinking of me, but I was sad to lose a reason to get dressed at all. I was sad to lose some kinds of touch, but I was glad to lose other kinds of touch. I mean, I was glad to lose getting up early, you know, not having to rush in the morning, just get an extra snooze, not having to run to class to make sure you get there on time, just getting to chill out. I was sad to lose, you know, getting to visit my family, just being able to travel to go see them when I need to, knowing what was happening when I was going to travel. But most of all, I think it was control. I was sad to lose control. I mean, it was like the whole world was a mug that had just been dropped.
You know that moment when you've just made a drink and everything's right in your life? Then, for some reason, for some completely stupid reason, the mug's not in your hand. And your fingers flash through empty air, and for a frozen fraction of a second, the whole thing's laid out before you. There's nothing you can do but watch its spinning progress to the floor. Well, the way you feel in that moment, like a bystander at an accident, except the accident's your life. That's the way the dream felt. Standing there in all that emptiness. Except, and this is important, except this isn't real life. In real life, the mug was dropped. somewhere unknown. The other side of the world. Nature has made us a cup of tea and we fumbled it. We were standing in the universe's kitchen, watching everything we'd carried fall tumbling to the tiles. Who knew the universe had a tiled floor, eh? Caught in a frozen moment of not knowing. Waiting to see if the rules we lived by, the structures we thought were solid, so much we'd forgotten they were there. Waiting to see if they would break or bounce out of our control.
Nothing we could say to stop the fall. But in the dream, in this strange world, the falling, the feeling of it was not an action taken or not taken. It was not an accident. It was not the world happening without me. I realised as I stood there, it was a choice. In the dream there was a feeling that I had no control. But I was in control of it. In control of the feeling of not being in control. Which meant I could choose. I could choose not to feel it. It was just me. No rules, no landscape, no buildings, no rocks, no responsibilities, and no work to do. Everything waiting, everything suspended. And only me there. Meaning, no matter what my life outside the dream was like, everything in it was my choice. And I wasn't used to that. I was not used to that at all.
I stood there just waiting for something to happen. And slowly it crept up on me. Fearful, yeah, but also kind of thrilling. Nothing was going to happen. Nothing was going to happen. Nothing was going to happen unless I made it happen. And so I held out my hand. And absolutely nothing happened. I guess I thought once I realised that what happened was in my power, I figured it would come easy. Like, hold out your hand and bam, there's a fountain.
I think I thought it would be like film magic, like game magic, like the power within me would go from point to blank, but it didn't. So I had to really think about it and start off simple, which seemed a bit unfair because it was my dream after all, but apparently I don't make the rules. I collected myself, I held out my hand, I started off simple, and I thought, blue. Nothing gets more simple than the blue sky. So I closed my eyes, I opened them, and something almost happened.
There was still flatness, still nothing, but maybe, just maybe, it was a slightly bluer nothing than before. Thing is, I could feel the power, like a spring inside of me. Both kinds of spring, I mean, the water kind and the metal kind. Like, it was gushing out but also winding up, and the way to be in charge of both of those things at once was to use them both. Think simple, think blue. Let it flow out. But also keep the tension, the direction, by answering the question, what kind? I thought blue, but this time thought the blue of the sky. And not just any sky, all skies are blue. But the blue of a sky seen in summer, when you've been up all night. Maybe you've climbed up on a roof, but you're at the highest point in your surroundings, and the horizon you can see knows the sun's on its way. But not for a while. There's no clouds or anything, there's no lights on in any of the houses, and just at the end of the dark, there's a blue that says morning's coming. That blue, I thought. That one.
And I held out my hand and stretched my fingers wide, closed my eyes, opened my eyes, And the blue in my head was the whole world, and the world was still simple, featureless and flat. But that hopeful, gentle blue of almost morning was laid across it and within it, like it had always been there. And it felt strange. This is all sounding a bit weird, I know. This is all sounding like some mystical experience, but it wasn't that. It wasn't. The strange feeling of magic, of fantasy, of extra dimensions and portals, of alien worlds opening up. It was the strangeness of this world, even this simple world. This simple landscape from inside me being within my control, being mine to command. One decision that was mine.
And this is what I think we're here to say, as far as I can tell. That feeling being swept up in events you can't control. And as the weather patterns change and the hospitals fill up and the future you wanted seems to melt under your hands. Being swept up in all that, in your smallness. But at the same time being so very still. It's not some imaginary landscape. It's the way life feels right now. And a year from now, I want my transition to be over. And now, right now, in this room, or through this screen, and all these rooms, that future world still seems untouchable.
We're just saying that the parts of life we want, they still feel like dreams. We still feel lost in a landscape that we're standing in, wondering what's going to happen next. But we remember. We're still remembering. You know, the spring. And the spring. The power to hold tight. And the power to let go. In the dream, we knew that the world didn't just act on us. We could act on it too. There's a kind of focus we can find inside ourselves. And then each other.
What to do, right? Is put a marker in the ground. It doesn't have to be nearby, just somewhere you'd like to be a year from now. And think of something you'd like to have achieved 10 years from now. And think of some change you'd like to see happen, I don't know, even tomorrow. And I suppose it doesn't really matter, because the important thing is, it starts with you. The important thing is that even in times of isolation, confusion and repetition, there's togetherness and there's still change and there's a choice in what we do with that. There's one decision that's mine and it's a choice to share it. So that's why we're sharing this.